Okay, so in the last episode we learned how to create a front page only using HTML and CSS. And in this episode we're going to learn to build a couple more pages such as a cases page and a case page, which are going to display all the different cases you might have inside your portfolio. And the case page is going to display one of these cases so we can actually see it. Now in our example here today, we're going to be inserting a video inside the case page with some kind of text in it. Now, before we get started on actually coding anything, there's a couple of questions I would like to answer that you guys asked me in the previous episode in the comments. And if you guys don't want to hear this, just go ahead and jump to the timestamp below and you can go ahead and skip it and jump straight to the coding part if you want to. Now, the first question I got was, why did we not use Bootstrap? Now, for the people who don't know, Bootstrap is what we call an HTML framework, which we have frameworks in all kinds of languages such as PHP, JavaScript, and so on, so on, so on. And what this one can do is it can make making a website a lot easier and faster and make it responsive immediately as we start making the website. Now, the reason we didn't use Bootstrap is because Bootstrap is based on HTML and CSS, meaning that we should already know HTML and CSS when we use Bootstrap. And because this is a HTML course, meaning that we haven't learned HTML entirely yet, I decided that we're not going to use any kind of frameworks. If you want to learn a framework, I will in the future start focusing on frameworks as well. But for now, we're just going to build a website using core HTML and CSS. Okay? Now, I also got asked, why did we not use something called Flexbox in the previous episode? So as you guys may notice in the previous episode, we used something called float in order to position elements next to each other inside the website. And we didn't use Flexbox. And there's nothing wrong with using float. It's the way we've been doing it for many years now. But Flexbox is a new thing that makes it a lot easier. But because we haven't learned it yet inside the course here, we didn't use Flexbox in the previous episode. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with the actual website here. So as you guys can see, this is what we did in the previous episode. We have a header up here. We have a banner. We have a couple of links. And we have a footer. Now, what I want to do here, which we didn't do in the previous episode, is I would like the header to follow me when I start scrolling down, because right now the header disappears and I would like it to always be there. So I'm going to go and go inside my coding document and I'm going to go down to the header styling. So I'm just going to go below our reset code and go to the header section, which is right here. And inside my header tag, I'm going to go ahead and add a position, which I'm going to set to fixed, meaning that this header is going to be positioned in a fixed way inside the website. Again, if I'm making typos, it's because I can't see the keyboard. It's under the microphone. So we're going to set it to fixed. I'm going to go ahead and position it at the top, 0 pixels, or just 0. Right is going to be set to 0. Left is also going to be set to 0, meaning that it's going to be touching the left, the top, and the right side of the browser. So if I go back inside the website, you can see that a couple of things happens. First of all the content below here sort of jumped up behind the header because we put it on a different layer by adding a position element to it. We need to fix that in a second. And what also happened is that when I start scrolling, you can see that the header stays, which is a really nice effect to have inside a website. Okay, now let's go ahead and fix that all the content jumped up underneath the header. So if we go inside our styling again, we can go down to where we have the content starting, which is below the header here. So we have the index banner. Let's actually go ahead and go back inside the website, inside the HTML file, and see that all the content we have inside the main page is actually inside a main tag. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this main tag, go inside my styling again, and I'm just going to go ahead and go above at the top here, above the header styling, because we have some default styling at the top here, and I'd just like to have it here. So I'm going to say we have a main tag, going to give it a styling set to not position, padding dash top, which is going to be set to the height of the header, which right now is 100 pixels, like so, meaning that all the content on all pages are going to go below the header, like so. So now it looks normal again, and when we scroll, it stays up there, which is really nice. Now, we could also have changed the text size in the footer, which we didn't do in the previous episode, because it is quite big, but you guys should know how to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it like that for now, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go inside our document here, or inside the text editor, And we're going to go ahead and create a cases page. I'm going to save the document here as cases.html. And I'm just going to save it directly inside my main directory of my root folder. So we have the index file and we have the style sheet right next to it. Okay. Inside of here, I'm going to go inside my index page. I'm going to copy everything. So I'm going to say Control A or Command A, copy, and paste it inside the cases page. Now, what is going to happen here is that we basically just copied the entire front page and made it into our cases page as well. So if you go to cases inside the website, we have the same content as the front page. Now, a couple of things I want to note about this is that right now, if I were to make a change inside the navigation, let's say I want to add another menu point, such as about, not about me, but about us, perhaps, then I need to change it inside all pages inside my website. And you might be asking, well, can't we just change it in one place and it changes everywhere? Well, yes, but it requires other programming languages than HTML. So we could use something like PHP in order to do this, but since we're not learning PHP in this lesson, we're not going to do it, okay? So what we're going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to go ahead and delete everything we have inside the main tag. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete, all the way down to right before the main tag ends. Going to save it. And then I'm going to go ahead and go inside my website, refresh, and go to cases. And we have a couple of links we can do that. We can go to cases up here in the top right, or we can go down to the link we have down here. So if I click it, you can see that we have a page without any content inside of it except for the header and the footer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and open up my design really quick because I didn't actually open that up before we got started here. I think I do have it here. There we go. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and build this page here. And I know there's a mobile version down here below, which we're not going to build. Like I said, it's basically just the same thing as in the previous episode if you want to make the website responsive, but it's going to be a much too long episode if we do responsive design on 2 pages today as well. So we're not going to do that today here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and build this page here. So we need a cases header tag that is up here. And then we need 8 links that goes below here. And then a contact me banner. And I don't know why this is blue. Well, I do actually know because I was messing around with it after the previous episode. There we go. So basically we're just going to build this section here, which should be fairly easy to do. So I'm going to go inside my coding document. And inside the main tags, I'm going to go ahead and create a h2 tag. Again, because it doesn't have a lot of text inside of it, I don't think it should be an h1 tag. Again, we don't really have any other sort of text inside the cases page here, so it could be an h1 tag if we wanted to, because it's the only important text in here. But I usually like to use a paragraph or something on top of the cases that says, hey, in here you can check out my cases, blah, 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 because it has a lot more information in it, which means that it should be a lot better to put inside an h1 tag, for example. That's just my way of doing things. So inside the h2 tag here, I'm going to go ahead and say cases. And then below the h2 tag, I'm going to go ahead and create a div box. So I'm going to say div. And we do have a bunch of different HTML5 tags that we can use in order to tell the browser what kind of content we have inside the website. In this case here, we're just going to go ahead and stick with a div. So inside the div here, I'm going to go ahead and give it a class. I could actually insert all of this inside a section, which is probably a good idea. So we're going to create a section tag. And we're just going to go ahead and insert everything inside of it. Like so. And the section tag, we're also going to go ahead and give a class because we need to name it something so we can actually separate the content inside of here. Now, I don't think we need to include a class down inside the div tag. Again, one of you asked me in the previous episode about good programming habits when it came to building websites. And one of them is that we want to reuse code as much as possible. So if I had to create 8 different div boxes that had different classes, then I'd have to create 8 different stylings inside the CSS file with, basically the same code inside of it. So what I could do instead is just simply say we have a section, which is the container for these div boxes, and say we have a div inside the section here. Okay, so we're reusing code. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and say we have a section that has a class named something like cases-links. And inside the div box here, I'm then going to go ahead and add the information that we want to have inside the box, which right now, if you take a look at the design, I just wrote case 1, case 2, case 3, so on, so on, so on. We can just go ahead and do the same thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a paragraph, set it to case 1. Again, if you have a case about maybe making a video for a company, then you should probably name it something relevant to what you did for that company, or maybe the company name that you made it for, okay? So now that we have this, we can go ahead and save it and copy paste it. So we need 8, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're gonna go inside our style sheet, and I'm gonna go ahead and go down to the bottom here. I'm just gonna scroll, right before we hit the footer styling, which is right here. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and create a comment that says cases, because now we're styling the cases page. And in here, I'm gonna go ahead and say we have a class called cases-links, curly brackets. And inside of here, I'm gonna go ahead and say we want to, well, first of all, we need to say we want to target the divs inside the cases links. And inside of here, I'm gonna go ahead and say we have a width set to, let's actually go ahead and check what I did in here. Now inside my design here, it does say 235 pixels for each box, but because we also need to calculate the margins in between the boxes, this might not be the correct width. So what I'm gonna do is, first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and pull out a calculator. And inside the calculator, I'm gonna go ahead and take the wrapper width, which I'm just gonna go ahead and check out inside my code here. So we're gonna say we have a wrapper, which is up here somewhere. Let's just see if we can find it. We may not have a wrapper in here. Oh, here it is, 1000 pixels. So we're going to say 1000 pixels. And then we're going to figure out what exactly the margin space is going to be in between the boxes. So we're going to say we have 4 boxes. There's going to be a margin of about 5 pixels on each side. So 5, 5 for the first box, which is 10. Then 5, 5 for the second box, which is 20. 30 and 40. So we have 40 pixels in total that we need to subtract from the width for the box here. So we're going to say minus 40. And then we need to divide that by 4 because we have 4 boxes. So we say divided by 4. So 240 pixels is going to be the total width of each of these boxes here. And I'm just going to set maybe the same thing for the height, maybe a little bit longer. We're going to go ahead and test it out to see what looks good. So I'm going to go back inside my code. I'm going to go down to the cases, and I'm going to set the width to 240 pixels. Again, there's a little bit of math involved in making websites, which is always a good thing. We're going to set the height to the same thing, just to see how it looks like. I'm going to set a background color to, there we go, to hashtag E3, because that is a very light gray color. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a float to it immediately. Again, floating is what I talked about in the beginning here. We do have other means of positioning elements next to each other inside programming. But because we haven't talked about those yet, we're going to go ahead and stick with floating, which is the way we used to do it in the past, and we still do it this way. But it's sort of being updated right now, so we can use something called Flexbox or CSS Grid. There's a lot of things we can use instead of floating. But I'm just going to go and stick with float today. So we're going to say left, and I'm just going to go and check how the website looks like. So we're just going to go inside the browser and refresh. And as you can see, we have a bunch of them next to each other. So what we need to do now is, as you guys may notice, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes next to each other. We only need to have 4, and then 4 in the next line. And the reason we have all of them, at least 6 of them next to each other, is because it had room for 6 inside the width of the browser here. Now, when we do actually include a wrapper, it's going to cut the amount of space available, meaning that when it can't fit in another box, it's just going to go down to the bottom and start in the next line, which is what happened with these two down here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap our div boxes inside a wrapper inside our cases page. I'm just going to move it over. So I'm going to go after cases, the h2 tag. I'm going to say we have a div, and I'm going to call this one wrapper because that's what we have it styled inside the CSS file. Then I'm going to grab all the div boxes And I'm just going to go ahead and copy, delete, and paste it inside the wrapper here and save it. If you go back inside the website, which is not the design, there we go. Now, as you can see, we do get a type of error here because the box is not behaving like we want them to. And essentially, if we go ahead and take a look at our code here, you can see that inside our CSS file, we said that if we had any kind of div boxes inside the cases links, then it's going to go ahead and add this styling to it, meaning that right now, our wrapper is also a div box inside our code here. If we go back inside the right page, you can see that the wrapper is also a div box, and the div box with the wrapper is also inside cases links. So all of these boxes here are going to get the styling, which is not what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and rename the cases links div to something else. So I'm going to say cases links to class cases dash link in singular form. So we don't have the S behind it. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this class to all the elements inside our cases page. So we're going to say we have this div here. Go ahead and add a class to it. Just going to paste in cases link. Then I'm going to go ahead and copy and just paste it and replace all these boxes we created down here. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now they all have a class in here. And if we go back inside the website, refresh, you can now see that we get something that looks a bit more like it should. Now what I'm going to do here is I would like to go inside my code and add a wrapper, or not a wrapper, but a margin to all these boxes here because we need some spacing in between them. So I'm going to go inside the code again, inside the CSS file, and right after the height. And again, the order here doesn't really matter too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it under the height because it makes sense to me. And I'm going to go ahead and add a margin and set it to something like 5 pixels because that's what we calculated inside the calculator. And I'm just going to go ahead and add 5 pixels to the top, 5 pixels to the left and right, and 0 pixels from the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And as you guys can see, we now have something that looks a lot better inside the design here. And again, if we wanted to add 20 pixels of margin in between them, then we need to calculate 10 on each side, and we have to calculate it over again. So you could add more to it if you wanted to. Now, I did also notice that the spacing underneath the boxes is smaller than the one in between, and that's because we added a 0 pixel from the bottom. So the top here has to be 10 pixels because it needs to have for both the top and the bottom. And now you guys can see that all the boxes have the right spacing all around it. Now the last thing we need to fix here is that the footer is actually touching the links, and there's 2 things we need to fix here. First of all, because all the elements inside the container here are floating, we're going to meet the same error as we had in the previous episode, and we can actually go ahead and see the error here if I were to right click and inspect what we have inside the website. If I were to highlight our cases links box, you can see that it's not very tall because it should cover the entire height of these boxes here as well, but because all the elements are floating inside the container is only going to have a very small height, and we need to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside my code, and I'm going to go ahead and take our cases links, not the individual div boxes inside the container, but the actual container, and I'm going to go ahead and add a styling to it. So I'm going to go ahead and say, first of all, we want to say overflow is going to set to hidden, which is going to fix the fact that it can't register all these boxes inside of it. And I'm going to go ahead and add a margin to the bottom of it so we can get some spacing from the footer. So I'm going to say margin dash bottom and set it to something like, let's say, 30 pixels. I'm not sure what we did inside the front page, so we might have to double check that. If I refresh, now you guys can see we have spacing down here, which is not going to work if we don't have the box covering the entire height of these cases here. So now that we have this, we can actually go ahead and just double check what we did at the bottom here. We did have, I think, 20 pixels. That might be right. Yeah, so we need to change this to 20 pixels. Now, one thing we might also want to change is the fact that you can see there's 10 pixels in between each box here. And if you go to the front page, you can see that we have much more space. We actually have 20 pixels of space inside these boxes here. So we could recalculate that really quickly if we wanted to. So let's actually go and do that. So we're going to say we have a wrapper, which is 1000 pixels. Then we want to say we have 10 on each side of each box, which is 20 times 4. So we have 80. So I'm going to say minus 80 pixels. Divide that by 4, and then we have 230 pixels instead. So let's actually go and go inside our code, and let's actually go inside the right page so we can actually see the change when it does actually happen. Then we're going to go inside our code, and I'm going to go ahead and change the margin to 20 at the top, 10 on left and right, and 0 from the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and change the width to 230 and the height to 230. Then I'm going to save it, refresh the browser, and now you guys can see we have something that looks a lot more like what we have inside the front page, because they need to match up with each other for it to look nice inside the website. We can't have certain spacing going on one page and then it completely changes on a second page, because that sort of ruins the proximity of all the content on the website. Okay? So what we need to do now is we basically just need to include a link around these cases, so we can actually click them, and then we need to adjust the text inside of them. And we need to add a contact banner, of course. So if we were to go inside our code, we can say we have cases-links, and say we have an h2 tag inside of here. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of the previous text that we have up here. Let's actually see if we have something that is already styled. If you take the h3 tag here and just copy all of that, we don't need to center it. We do need to uppercase it, so let's actually go and copy all of it. Just going to paste it in down here. And I'm going to go ahead and change the font family to this one, so we're going to keep this one. The font size, let's keep that at 28. Font weight, 600, that's fine. Line height is 100, which is not what we want. We might need to change that later. Color is set to black, which is fine. Text align center is not fine. And then we want to transform it uppercase, so that's fine. Now we do also need to insert the cases text inside the wrapper as well, because I don't think we did that. So if we go back inside the cases page, let's go to the top and take the cases h2 tag and move it inside the wrapper here, so we can get it aligned with everything else inside the website. So if we go ahead and refresh, you guys can see we now have it like it should be. Now we could also add a bit of space from the top here, because I think it's pretty close to the logo up there, so probably going to do that as well. But we're just going to go ahead and style the text inside these boxes here immediately. So I'm going to go inside the style sheet, I'm going to copy what we have here, paste it below the cases link, and just going to go ahead and add that to the file path here. Just going to say copy paste, change it to paragraph, because that's what we have inside of it. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the font size to something like 16 pixels instead. And I do want to center this text, so we say text-align should be centered. There we go. Refresh. And now what we need to do is we need to, well, I do think the text should probably be a little bit larger, and it should be, in the middle of the boxes here. So I'm going to go ahead and go inside the code again, and I'm going to go ahead and say we want to change the font size to 24. Now, in order to vertical align the text inside the boxes here, we're going to do something a little bit different than what we did previously in the last episode, where we wrapped it inside a table, because we just have one element that needs to be centered. So what I think we could do instead, at least in this example here, is we can go ahead and say we want to take the text and add a padding top, padding-top, and set this one to not a pixel amount, but instead a percentage amount. So we could say something like, let's start with 45%, just to test it. This might go horribly wrong and we need to change it. And that did actually turn out pretty good. And the good thing about this, if we were to change the box, it will automatically adjust the text inside of here. Okay, so this is how we could center the text. Let's actually go ahead and add links around all these boxes here. So if we go inside our cases page, we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing as we did before by deleting all the other cases except one. And we're just going to go ahead and wrap a link around one of these cases here. So I'm just going to say we have a link. I'm going to close the link after the case. And I'm just going to shift out the div box so we have some hierarchy inside the code here. So it looks kind of nice. And I'm going to go ahead and change the link to case. And we could say something like case1.html, because it needs to link to just one of the case pages we might create inside the document here. Again, Using other programming languages, we could make this a lot easier by just creating one document that updates the content depending on what the link says. But since we're only doing pure HTML and CSS, we would need to create a single page for each case we have inside the website, okay? Which is not a bad way of doing it, but it's just a little bit slower to build it this way, okay? So now that we did this, we can actually go ahead and just copy paste. 5, 6, 7, 8, I do believe. And let's go ahead and refresh and double check. Yeah. And now we can actually click the boxes in here. So if we were to click it, you can see we get taken to case1.html. Just going to go ahead and get out of that. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create one of these cases. And again, you could insert a background if you wanted to inside the link we just created. If you want to insert an image, just go ahead and do that using CSS. We're just going to go ahead and keep it like this for now. We did actually forget to create a contact banner. I do think you guys know how to do that by now, because it's basically just creating a box like we did up here, inserting 2 pieces of text inside of it. So, you know, I don't want the tutorial to be too long, so we're just going to go ahead and skip these for now, since these are pretty easy to make by yourself. It's a good exercise, so you have some homework to do if you want to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page, save it as case1.html. Again, you can sort of hear my voice is going away because I've been recording for a while. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy what we have inside the cases page and paste it inside case 1. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and delete what we have inside the section tag inside the main tag. I'm just going to delete until we reach the h2 tag. I'm not going to delete the h2 tag because we need to use it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and say we have not a cases-links, but a case-links. So I'm just going to keep like this. And we should probably also delete links because it doesn't really make sense. Now, inside my design here, just so we can take a look at it, you can see that we do have the title of the case, which could be the one we have in the center here. So this one could be Bella, if you wanted to. And then it opens up the case where it says Bella at the top here. And then we have a video of the dog that we have in the camper here with us. And we also have some text down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and go inside my class here. I'm going to name it case-vid, which stands for video. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say we have this section h2 tag changed to Bella. Again, we could just write it Bella in capitalized letters, or we could change to using CSS. Let's actually go and use CSS since we've been doing that this whole time. After the h2 tag, I'm going to go ahead and add a video, which is going to be an HTML5 video. So I'm just going to say video, create the tag by clicking tab. I'm going to change the file type to MP4 because that's what I have. Now I do have a video ready inside my video folder, inside my root folder. And I know you guys may not have this one. You guys can always use another video that you have on your computer as an example, or you can download the lesson files in the description of this video if you want to. I did just notice that it's an MOV file. It's not a MP4 file, so I'm just going to change that. I'm actually going to write the full file name here, and it's inside a video folder. We need to remember that. It's going to autoplay. I don't want that. A poster image. We could set a poster image. I do not know if we have that inside my design here. We may have. Yeah, we do have a poster image. I'm going to go and use that one as well. So I'm going to copy it. And I'm just going to change the link here. So we have inside a image folder /, and then the name of the image we want to use as a poster. Now we also need to add controls so people can actually control the video and pause it if they want to. So we're going to say control with an S, I do believe. And then we're just going to go ahead and see what happens inside the website here. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh. And as you can see, we now have Bella, at least the title up here. And we have a video here that is not quite working. We need to figure out why. Okay. Controls, of course, needs to go outside the double quotes. There we go. And refresh. And now you guys can see we have a video going on inside the website here. We can play it if we want to. Again, she was kind of messy that day. And we're going to go ahead and center all of this. So we want to center the text and the video. So I'm going to go inside my code, inside the CSS file. And I'm going to go ahead and create another comment below here. I just wrote that the other way around. There we go. We're going to call this one case, just in singular, because this is going to be all the styling for all the case pages we have inside the website, so we don't have to make too many chapters inside the style sheet. And I'm going to go ahead and say we have a, if I remember correctly, it was case-vid. I'm going to copy it, then I'm going to go inside my style sheet, and I'm just going to go ahead and add it down here at the bottom here, like so. So basically what I'm going to do here is every single case page that is based on a video that has, for example, a video of a dog or something else inside of it, is going to have the styling as case-vid inside the container. So all the cases that we have that has this specific styling inside of it set to case-vid is going to be styled the same way, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we have this container here, and I want to style the h2 tag first. We're going to say we have an h2 tag up here. I'm going to copy from just the h2 tag we have up here, like so. Paste it in. We're going to add a text align center. Like so. And I'm going to go ahead and center the video as well. So we're going to go ahead and say we have case-width, and we have a video tag that we want to center. So we're going to say we want to set a margin to 0, auto, save it, and refresh the browser. Now the video wasn't centered yet, so we need to go inside our code and add a display and set it to block. And there we go. So now we need to add a bit of spacing below Bella, because I think it needs that. So we're going to go inside our code again and say we have the video. We want to add a padding. I'm just going to add a padding to the top and bottom, set to something like 30 pixels. And the sides are going to be 0. And there we go. So we're also going to go ahead and actually let's go ahead and keep the name up here the same, so it's actually consistent with what we have inside our cases page. So it's the same size as this text over here. Again, so we have the same consistency all around the website. So underneath the video, I'm going to go ahead and add some text. So I'm going to create a text box inside our case page underneath the video. I'm going to go ahead and call this one a article tag, because this is a content with independent content inside of it, meaning that we could take the text here, take it out from the case page, and still use it and read about it, which is basically means that we have an article that has independent content inside of it. So we're going to use an article tag in this example here. So we're going to go ahead and say we have a class. Actually, we're not going to go ahead and say we have a class because we don't need that. And inside the article tag, we're then going to add the text that we're going to go ahead and have inside the website here. Now, as you can see here, we do also have columns inside the text that we have down here. And there's a couple of ways we can create this. Either we can create 3 separate div boxes with separate text inside of it, or we can create columns using CSS, which we're going to go ahead and do because it's much easier and faster to do. But it doesn't give us as much control about what needs to go inside each column that we have inside the website here. But we're going to go ahead and do it that way anyways. So we're going to go inside our code. We're going to say we first of all have a h3 tag, which was, just going to go ahead and copy what we have here, rec, which stands for record, video, which could be the name of this case that I have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in. Then I'm going to create a div box that is going to have some text inside of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we have, let's just go ahead and not give this one a class. And let's go ahead and add the text that we want to insert in here. So we're going to say we have a paragraph. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy all the text that we have here. Just going to paste the first text in here. Again, if it goes out to the side, we can go up inside View, toggle soft wrap inside this text editor here, which is Atom. And I'm just going to go ahead and add the other columns as well. So we're going to go inside the design, copy, and paste, copy, and paste. There we go. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to go ahead and insert a width and a height to this div box we have inside of here. So I'm going to say copy, paste our styling, and then we're just going to go ahead and change the path so we have styled the correct thing inside the case page. So let's go ahead and start with the h3 tag that we have inside the article tag. So we're just going to go ahead and go inside our style sheet again. And I'm just going to go ahead and say we have a case vid article h3. And I'm just going to copy paste some of the styling we have from up here. So I'm just going to copy it, paste it in here, and remove the text align center because we don't need it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste. And then say we have a div box instead of an h3. And inside the div box, we have a paragraph. Inside this paragraph, I'm just going to go ahead and keep a lot of the styling because we need to have it as part of the paragraph styling here. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the font size because we don't need to have 28 pixels. Instead, I'm going to say 16 pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and add a line height to it as well so it doesn't look like it's cramped closely together, the lines of text. So I'm going to set this one to 24 pixels. Again, we could be styling the paragraph text separately somewhere else, so we don't have to redo a lot of this code every single time we need to include a paragraph, which would be better coding habits. But just for the example here today, we're just going to go ahead and do it inside each paragraph here. Now I'm going to go ahead and save it, go inside my browser, refresh, just so we can see what we have here. And now you guys can see we have some text going on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside this paragraph again, and I'm going to go ahead and add a column using CSS. So I'm going to say we have something called column dash count, which is going to say how many columns do we want to have inside this paragraph here. I'm going to go ahead and say we want to have 3 because that's what I had in my design. And we're going to go ahead and add a column gap, meaning that we want to have some spacing in between each of these columns here. I'm going to set this one to 20 pixels. That might be too small. Let's go ahead and test it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh. And as you guys can see, we now have 3 columns inside the code here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and increase the gap a little bit because I think that would be better. So I'm just going to say 30 pixels instead. And there we go. Now we could also change if the text should go all the way out to the right side and touch the border, because as you can see, some words are a little bit too long to fit in here inside this previous line. But if we do that, then we're going to get some weird spacing in between the letters. So again, there's a couple of ways you can design the text inside your website. I'm just going to go ahead and keep it like this for now. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add some spacing on top of the text and the title we had here. So I'm just going to go inside my code again, go to the title, say I want to add a padding bottom to 20 pixels. Refresh the browser, and as you can see, we now have some spacing going on. Again, the font here in the bottom inside the footer is not small enough because it's bigger than what we have inside the actual content of the website, which proportionally looks really weird. But like I said, we could always just go inside our footer down here and say we want to change the links so we have a font size not set to 24, but something like 16 pixels instead. So we're just going to go ahead and refresh. And we do also have a title here we need to change. Just going to do that as well. If I have it in here somewhere. Ah, here it is. It's down inside the, the responsive design at the very bottom here. Just going to save it. And there we go. It looks a lot better when it's not really big compared to all the other text we have inside the main part of the website. I do think there could be a bit more spacing in between these lines here. Again, we can always fiddle around with it by changing the line height, changing different things inside the website. But I think this looks good for now. So now we have a case page where we have some text, we have a video, we have a title to whatever paragraph that describes what exactly this case is about. So we have a couple of things going on inside this website here. And this is basically all we wanted to do in this episode, at least in this project here, which was to create something that looks close to a website. Again, there are some pages that we haven't created yet, which is just going to be blank, but you can always create those by yourself and just sort of test out what we did in these 2 episodes in order to build a full website if you want to. Now, I do want to point one thing out before we end off the episode. Do notice that when I go inside my cases page and go back to the front page, there's a delay in when the image inside the banner actually shows. Like so. Now, that is caused by the fact that the image I used is really big inside the project folder. I probably should take the picture that I have inside the root folder and put it inside Photoshop or something, rescale it down a little bit so it's not really big, because it takes a lot longer for the website to load large files, such as a big image. So we should probably make this a little bit smaller so it doesn't, take almost half a second to load up the page, or to load up the image that we have in here. So just a tip for you guys if you want to change that. Okay, so now we have practically what we wanted to build in these episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to say thank you for all the support you've given me on YouTube, and give out a huge thanks to the people on Patreon who supported me on Patreon on a monthly basis. And if you're new and you don't know about Patreon, you can go ahead and click on the link in the description of this video, and it'll take you to my Patreon where you can pay a small amount every month, either to support me or to download the lesson material for my lessons here on the channel. So I hope you guys will take the time to go and check that out, and I hope to see you guys next time.